thank you so much for joining us for our final panel discussion of the day, which will be about the humanitarian response to the war. Over the next hour and a half, our panelists will speak about the different societal effects of the war, including the reception of refugees and migrants in the Baltic countries, as well as various humanitarian projects. My name is Freya Proudman, and I'm very honored to be chairing this panel discussion today on behalf of UCL-SSEES. I'm a postgraduate student, and at the time of the full-scale invasion, I was the SSEES student president. And during my time as presidency, I advocated for greater support for our Ukrainian students here at UCL. And I, along with my classmates, many of them I see in the room today, we led SSEES's donation drives for Ukraine, which remain ongoing even today. And we've collected thousands of boxes of donations for Ukraine. So I'm very humbled to chair this panel discussion on a topic that's very close to our hearts here at UCL-SSEES as well. And I'm very pleased to introduce our phenomenal lineup of speakers. First off, I'd like to introduce Jonas Ohman and Žemyna Bliumenzonaitė, who are here from the NGO Blue Yellow in Lithuania. Next, we have Eero Janson, who is the director of the Estonian Refugee Council, and Linda Jākobsone-Gavala from the Latvian NGO I Want to Help Refugees. The way we will proceed is I will invite each of our speakers to come up to give a 10 to 15-minute overview about their initiatives and their projects. After that, we will have a bit of a discussion, and I will open the floor to question and answers from the audience. So to begin, without further ado, I would like to first pass the floor to Blue Yellow, which is an NGO that has worked to support the Ukrainian armed forces since 2014. Jonas Ohman is one of the founders of Blue Yellow, and he is joined today by Žemyna Bliumenzonaitė, who is the head of war logistics. Jonas is a filmmaker, translator, and journalist carrying both Swedish and Lithuanian passports. He's also written a book on the war in Ukraine called Donbass Jazz, which is available in Lithuanian. Žemyna has a master's degree in international relations and diplomacy, and at Blue Yellow, she oversees the distribution systems for the organization to units in the armed forces in Ukraine and for contacts with foreign fighters from different countries working as instructors. Jonas and Žemyna have both won many awards for their work, which is absolutely phenomenal, and I would like to highlight a few. Jonas has received the Medal for the Defense of Kharkiv, Support Medal of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, and the Combat Volunteer Medal. And since the 24th of February 2022, Blue Yellow has collected almost 50 million euro in donations for Ukraine. So please welcome them.
Thank you very much. I think we will, at this point, we will focus on what we are doing, the why, and what we should do next. We'll leave that for the discussion. Briefly, Blue Yellow is a Lithuanian NGO founded in 2014. After this, as we all know, this of course was a shock for everybody. But for the Baltic states, what happened in Crimea and later in Donbass was also a very, very clear reminder of Russia's intention not to leave their interest zone alone for the future. With a massive support of the Lithuanian society, all levels, government, media, business, etc., we set off with the endeavor to actually to help the Ukrainian armed forces, because we understood, we saw the state of the armed forces. We saw the volunteer efforts, the volunteer battalions. We understood we have to help them out because it's better to fight in Ukraine than in the Baltics. When this whole conflict became even more severe in the case of open aggression, mind you, we knew that war was coming already back in 2014. I'm a former Swedish intelligence something. And I mean, I made the assessments, and I mean, it was clear war is coming. It was just a matter of when. And we were there. I was there personally during the days before the invasion. Also, I was in Zaporizhzhia when the war began, when the Russians came, basically, I saw what happens in the country when actually war is coming. How they behave, how they panic, etc., etc. And we took the fast track out to Poland. What happened then was that we had a massive influx of donations. In the first week, I think we gathered some 10 million euros, mostly from the Lithuanians who knew at that point who we were. They knew Blue Yellow was and is, of course, even more by now, a household name in Lithuania. Everybody know us, they know me, that we have been around in media, of course, and most of social media. So when bad things happened, they knew where to go. And we were able to upscale our operations on an unprecedented level. This is Žemyna sitting in front of a huge package of drones and optics, etc. And with our already established connections in Ukraine, military as well as civilian, we were able to start to work immediately. I will just give you one example of how integrated we are at this point with the defense system in Ukraine. Just this morning, I got a request from a new brigade, new setup brigade. They're now receiving the Caesar howitzer, 155 millimeter. They ask us, mind you, civil society, for the drones to actually be able to accomplish reconnaissance and fire correction for these artillery. I kid you not. Also, we are involved in various kinds of, let's call it R&D. This is one of the examples what we're working with, kamikaze drones. And you see for yourselves, it's a standard Russian RPG warhead with a drone, and that's the end of that. We are also working with intimately with, for say, the military, the defense industry, say of Lithuania, providing, for instance, these anti-drone weapons produced in Lithuania, EDM for us, and they are being extremely efficient. We have provided hundreds of these. And we work with everybody in Ukraine, regular forces, special forces, security forces, military intelligence, and for our foreign units. This is a Chechen unit that we just received one of these anti-drone systems. We are also working, again, we are a civil society, we are non-lethal. It's very important to say that. We do not provide guns per se, but we provide means to make the weapon systems Ukraine has or even constructs more efficient. This is one example. The truck you see is from us. This specific system is called the Minigrad. It's constructed in Vinica with some volatile friend of ours, and we have provided several of these to the front line, and they're doing their job perfectly well. We're also working with, give us one interesting example. One of the Russia's biggest assets is their electronic warfare assets, EW. They're very good at that. They have many of them. They have very efficient systems, and they're learning. They're picking up how to actually develop these systems to become more efficient. So what we do triangulation with the help of the Ukrainian foreign forces, and when we find them, we HIMARS them, basically. I'm kidding you not again. We're also working in the other direction. The guy second left here, it's Kyle Parker from the Helsinki Commission in the Congress, US Congress, who agreed after some visits to go with us in person to the front line to meet some of the units, talk to the commanders about the real needs of the Ukrainian armed forces. The perceived needs from the West and the real needs are not necessarily all the time the same. I can say that much. And it's been a very, very fruitful cooperation in many ways. We have been able to provide lots and lots of useful information to Washington with the help of our friends there. Also, we are committing various kinds of fundraiser in Lithuania, most of all, but not only. And I'm very proud about the latest one where we may able to raise 14 million euros for anti-aircraft radar systems from Israel, mind you. And the first systems are already being provided to Ukraine. They're coming over the next weeks. Training is committed in Lithuania together with the Lithuanian armed forces. And this is again an interesting. We are the first ones who actually managed to convince Israel to buy military-grade equipment to Ukraine via Lithuania. Just to give you some example of what we do, of course, we gather information all the time. This is a very interesting example. This is me standing in Kherson area, and you can see this mortar pieces, 60 millimeters. They are from, guess what? China. That's correct. China is providing ammunition to Russia as we speak on a small scale level, but it's there, and we should have no illusions about this. Another example, we are gathering, of course, information. This is from yesterday. This is a Lithuanian volunteer fighter who provided information that the Russians have started to use gas. Chloroprizine, I think it's called. It's from the Second World War I, actually, level gas. But Russia has started to use gas, and we have clear evidence of it. This is just a photo of that. And so we gather information. Of course, we adapt to that. We try to get the right kind of equipment ahead of time, if possible, to counter the Russian war effort. Speed is of highest importance, yes, to be fast and accurate with your support. We're also starting to do one more thing, and this is the first example. Over time, we have realized that we have to do one thing that we're not doing at the moment. We have to provide people to Ukraine. In people, I mean specialists, various fields, not only military, to actually be in Ukraine, stay there, work with Ukrainians, and figure out how they, from their special perspective, can be more efficient in terms of aid and in terms of we also, for instance, cooperate. These are our Lithuanian medical personnel, nurses, doctors. We are also cooperating with the Ministry of Social Security in Lithuania to figure out the social problems in Ukraine. And this is probably, I'm very, very proud of this. That's one of our latest developments. And Žemyna, I'd like to explain what we're looking at here. We can look at the video first, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. It's worth it to feel that their dedication and knowledge will outlast their time there.
We don't always need to be shooting to be fighting. So when we train other people, we help them become better. And that way we create a wave of new knowledge that can make a big impact in this world. So you're going to lead the way for the rest of the guys from now on. And you're always going to be the examples for these guys who has not been doing this training. I'm just here to give you guys the tools to keep building your toolbox bigger and bigger.
In the end, guys like Jay, Michael, and
yeah, so this is the video from one of our trainings. What we learned in Ukraine, that the lack of gear is not the biggest problem. One of the biggest problem in Ukraine is the lack of skills. And because of lack of skills, people die, and we have a lot of casualties. So we decided to invest in training. We have instructors from a lot of countries, a lot of different countries, like NATO countries, yes. Like Navy SEALs, Delta Forces, Jaegers, and so on. And what we are doing now, we're providing the training of sniping, advanced mortars, targeting, planning, medicine, leadership, because we see that lack of skills in leadership and planning, it's really causing a lot of casualties, and a lot of new units which are fighting in Ukraine, they have a lot of casualties, like 60% of people die because of lack of skills.
Yeah. It's also, so we are basically we are hiring instructors. Basically, you may understand the implications of that as an NGO from European Union. So I want to end this one here. Obviously, it's a small. Some of you smile when you see it. This is a real war, a real situation. We have to fight. That is our deep convictions in 2014. And we have to get much, much more involved in this in many different ways than we are at this point. But we leave that for the discussion afterwards. Now we please the floor to our partner organizations, colleagues from Latvia and Estonia. Thank you.
Thank you to Blue Yellow for the presentation. I just want to highlight a couple things of your remarks. First off, that need to adapt, to really figure out what is needed and identify the needs and to adapt. Like you said, identifying that skills were needed and then adapting your aid to provide those things. So I think this getting to the root causes. Getting to adapt is really, really important, like you highlighted. And also the role of civil society, like you said, they came to us, the civil society. So I think your initiative really shows the importance of what the people can do to help. So thank you for that. Next, moving right along, I would like to welcome our next speaker, who is Eero Janson, who's the director of the Estonian Refugee Council. He leads their support work in Estonia, as well as humanitarian operations in Ukraine, Georgia, Kenya, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. He holds 2 master's degrees in political science and in international humanitarian action. So please, Eero, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good to be in London again. Well, Jonas said initially before the panel started to be a bit provocative. So I intend to be a bit because there's one thing I want to clarify first, because the name of the panel is about humanitarian response, and we are a humanitarian organization. Humanitarian organizations need to be following humanitarian principles. Among them are neutrality and impartiality and independence, meaning that as humanitarian organizations, we cannot assist any people carrying weapons, any warring sides. We need to, as humanitarians, we need to follow only the needs of civilians, and we can assist only civilians. So just a misnomer in the panel name. That is not to say that Ukraine doesn't need all kinds of assistance, including military. As humanitarian organization, we have been in existence in Estonia for 22 years, making us a relatively old organization in the Estonian context. In Ukraine, similarly to Blue Yellow, we have operated since 2014, since the war actually started. I think this still needs a reminder every now and then that the war didn't start on 24th of February 2022, but 8 years before that. When the new invasion started last year, we were at that moment wrapping up our cash assistance program in Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast. So this is the region where we have operated all these years. And a bit surprisingly to us, when the invasion happened in February, most of the humanitarian organizations fled. They pulled back, especially the international ones. They left the country. They left to Poland. They evacuated everyone. And similarly, a bit surprisingly for us, we stayed. Our people stayed, which gave us a good place to scale up and scale up quickly. And again, somewhat surprisingly, we became the first international NGO to actually start humanitarian assistance, cash assistance program in Ukraine last year. We are still one of the largest ones. UN has surpassed us by now, but well, they do it a bit differently as well. With cash assistance, we have thus far assisted close to 250,000 individuals. So this is not a number, just a number on the paper, but this is actually, every single person counted and counted for. Mostly in Zaporizhia, Kherson, Kharkiv, Donetsk oblasts, meaning the oblasts most in need, because the humanitarian assistance response over the past year has been very much from the different humanitarian organizations side, has been focusing on IDPs. And this is something that the Ukrainian government has continuously emphasized again and again, that people in need are not just IDPs. There are different responses, also from the government side towards IDPs, but the most in need are the ones still living in the areas of hostilities. So multi-purpose cash assistance, something we are known and famous for in Estonia, in Ukraine. Also, when this war started, we started evacuating people from the Ukraine-Polish border. More than 8,000 people were safely taken to Estonia, people who already had connections to Estonia. Also, food support is something we still give in certain areas where cash is not viable or feasible modality at the moment. But still, I think many organizations, many humanitarian organizations came to Ukraine with their toolbox from countries like Somalia, like Pakistan, from Bangladesh. They came with certain preconceptions that you need to give food packages because it's a war, it's a conflict. Let's start bringing food in. In reality, markets never failed in Ukraine. The banking system never failed in Ukraine, leading cash assistance being the most quick and also most dignified way of assistance. This is the reason why we do it like we do it. At the same time, being I think at the moment, Estonian Refugee Council is the largest NGO in Estonia in general. So we are the first line of welcoming refugees in Estonia as well. Estonia has welcomed more than 68,000 Ukrainian refugees, making it per capita, I think, probably in top 3 at least, if not the first. And there we meet because of our position, because of our counseling program, because we provide the mandatory adaptation program, etc. We see most of the Ukrainian refugees coming to Estonia in order to stay or passing through, because approximately half of Ukrainian refugees use Estonia as a transit country because of the border we share with Russia, and many people coming therefore through Russian territory in order to get to safety in the European Union. We are also operational in Georgia, also assisting Ukrainian refugees there, also IDPs. And interestingly, I was in Georgia in 2008 when the war started there, when Russia attacked Georgia. And the internally displaced people from South Ossetia are now the ones assisting Ukrainians arriving to Georgia. And Ukrainians who very often in Georgia need to work in low-paying positions, serving in restaurants, in high-end restaurants, the Russian draft avoiders fleeing to Georgia as well. So life has its interesting ways. I will stop here, and I'm open to any questions, provocative or not, that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eero. And that adds another dimension to our conversation about refugees and migrants. So it's really nice to see such a diverse panel here. So we'll surely have a lot to talk about in our discussion. Finally, to introduce our last presenter, This is Linda Jākobsone-Gavala, and she is a board member and project manager at the NGO I Want to Help Refugees in Latvia. Prior to her work with the NGO, Linda worked mainly with government and European Union communications. She has served as the assistant to the European Affairs Committee at the Parliament of Latvia, head of the communications department of the State Chancellery of Latvia, as well as been responsible for communications and public relations during the Latvian presidency of the Council of the European Union in 2015. She holds a master's degree in European Studies, a Master of Science in Organizational Management, and a Master's of Social Science in Political Science. I want to read out the bios of our speakers because I think they're so phenomenal. So thank you, Linda, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you for presenting me, and thank you also for the opportunity to be here. I must truly say that this is the first time that from the escalation of the war, we had a chance to meet face to face also with the colleagues, and also the first time to really talk to the people in the international audience. So thanks for inviting me. And also from what Freya said before, you can see that my background is not from NGOs. I really dived into the problem on the 24th of February, even though I have been a volunteer for the organization I Want to Help Refugees from 2015. And let me just say in a couple of sentences what the organization did from the 2015, when you might remember that we had this so-called migration crisis in Europe. And so in Latvia, I can frankly say that we were not prepared for that crisis, and in many ways. So one of our quite well-known exporters, a businessman, he just posted on Facebook that something has to be done about it, and people need more things, and that was winter, and some of them were just in flip-flops, and so let's do something about it. And everybody, I invite you to come and take things to my shop. And that's how it started with that first post. And probably looking back, it was not, from the humanitarian organization perspective, probably was not the best way to respond from the crisis. But that's how the situation started. So we started from a Facebook group, a closed Facebook group, and for years and years, we were helping refugees and also the peasants who were returned for a second time to Latvia after getting their status. And we were around 3,000 people on that group, and predominantly volunteers. And in our organization, before the 24th of February, there was 1.5 staff. So that was pretty much it for our organization. And we were doing a lot of support activities, information activities, and educational activities. So on a day before the 24th February, namely 23rd of February, we have set up a WhatsApp group with other NGOs. And we decided that it's time for us to talk what we'll do if the war actually breaks out, and that it would be, a million times better to be prepared if something happens. None of us knew that in the morning on the 24th of February, when we actually had the first meeting of the NGO set, that we will wake up with the fact that it actually, the things happened that all of you know what happened. So we had that first meeting, and ever since we have had these coordination meetings, in the beginning every day, then after that 2 times a week. Now it's every day, and we're coordinating more or less the network of 25 NGOs, some of them being umbrella NGOs. So even though we had this not such a big experience, I would say, compared to some other colleagues or some other organizations, that was clear to us that we have to be the coordinating one, because we have the most experience in working with the refugees. And also that we will have the professional capacity to do that, even though, as I said, we only had at the moment 1.5 staff members. So what we did, as the NGOs involved right from the first day, we understood that the willingness to help in Latvia, the same as in other countries, is huge. But the people didn't know what to do. So as you might remember, in the beginning, it was very chaotic. People just sat on the cars and went to the border of Poland, and then they would call us up and say, hey, where are the people? Whom do we pick up? So it was not the best way to do that.
It was a way.
But it was a way, exactly. So I figured out that the only way to get it a little bit organized was we had 2 questionnaires. One was for the drivers who possibly could go, and the other one for the people who actually needed help. So in 2 days, we managed to, at least in Latvia, to organize it a little bit and connect the people who needed to get to Latvia, who knew somebody in Latvia and who wanted to get to Latvia, with the drivers or the people who are willing to pay for the gas, for example, or anything else. On the 27th of February, we included that questionnaire in the website that was done by another NGO that has actually nothing to do with refugees. It is a tech organization. So they created this platform. The name of the platform is ukrainelatvia.com, and it's still running. And that's, I think, one of the most interesting examples about Latvia, that we have this semi-official website still being as an official website of our government, even though it has been run from the 27th of February last year by the NGOs, now currently by our NGO. And that is visited by more than 1 million visitors from then, which is quite a number for Latvia, obviously. And we have all the basic information there. It doesn't matter, is that transportation, education, social benefits, because obviously the questions of the people have also changed. So this is one of the examples of what they did. And then also when the people starting to arrive right in February, in the beginning of the March, we also understood that we have to do many more coordination activities. And I'll give you one more example. People were looking, obviously, we arrived with very little amount of things. So they were looking for everything, including clothing, food, kids stuff, and all the other things. So they were pretty much going around and asking where they can get these things. So what we did was also in the end of March, we created a platform which now has more than 120 points in all Latvia, in all regions of Latvia, where you can find humanitarian assistance. And if in the beginning these are things that I mentioned, then now we have developed, for example, for the integration courses, Latvian language courses, and other things that people now are starting to need. But what I also would like to point out that it is not specifically Ukrainian refugee dedicated website, because what we've also learned is that we have to involve more the society in the organized way to help, but also not to help only Ukrainians or to help other refugees, but also to help one another. So this website works for everybody. Either you are Latvian in need, you are Afghani in Latvian need, you're Ukrainian in need. And it's now run, as I said, in 5 languages: Latvian, Ukrainian, Russian, English, and Arabic. These are just two of the examples that we see that the cooperation among the NGOs was really of utmost importance. And it's the first time that I can see in the NGO world in Latvia, the organizations are very transparent, very open of what they will be doing, how they are running things, and everybody did what they best could do. And I think that is a huge learning example from all of us, and should be also brought forward. But another thing that I saw probably is of the same importance, or even probably even more important, is that we learn to cooperate, the state institutions, the municipalities, the NGOs, and the businesses. And that is obviously has been a huge effort to bring everybody on the same page and to work together. And I can thank our government in a way that the NGOs have been involved from the day one. We have this body that is managing everything that has to do with the Ukrainian refugees in Latvia. It's called Operational Management Meeting, and is chaired by the Ministry of Interior. And our organization since day one was there. So we're always on weekly meetings that are there, and we're representing the NGO opinion. How do we know what the NGO opinion is, and how do we know what is happening in the field? Is also that we don't only work with the NGOs on the cooperation meetings, but we also, with the help of the UNHCR, we have a project that helps us to visit municipalities. And out of 43 municipalities, we have now visited 36. So I have a pretty good understanding what's happening everywhere in Latvia. Because one thing also to mention, and it might be obvious, but it's not so much, if you think about it, before February last year, the refugees were living in 2 of them. Now they live everywhere. And that's, I think, the other thing. If one of them, it has been that we've learned to work together as government, municipalities, as I said, businesses, and the NGOs. The other thing has been that it has been really a mass response from pretty much everybody in Latvia to help the refugees. And if it would not be for your municipalities or the people who work in the municipalities or live in the municipalities, it wouldn't have worked out. Because what we see is now an extreme amount of goodwill of the people to help in any kind of way they can. But it also has been an ad hoc response. So where we are at the moment, and I'll finish with this, is that we have to start thinking, unfortunately, long-term. If last year, February, March, April, we thought it's going to be over in 2 months, you know, the most probably by the end of the year. Now we understand that even if the war will finish very soon, and we all do hope it will finish very soon, the people cannot go back. Many can, but there are many who will not be able because their houses are destroyed. The infrastructure is not there, the schools are not there, the hospitals are not there. So we have to start thinking of how to find the people, the housing, which is more proper than living in an accommodation center, which for the time being is very good, but it's not a long-term solution. How to help with the language, and some of you might know that Latvian language is not the easiest, but I still have to learn if you want to live in Latvia and find a better opportunities to work, as well as for the kids, obviously, to integrate in the school. So this is something that we are at the moment, and I think we don't have good answers to that yet, but we definitely have to work on it the same way as to keep the volunteer movement going. Because also one thing is that to have this mass interest in the beginning to help, but also to channel it in the way that it's the most rational and works in the long term. And that is something else that we have to work on. I get a lot of times question, are the volunteers not dropping out? Are the donations still coming? And I can surely say that in Latvia, and I think the colleagues might say the same, that we see this interest. There's a huge interest in helping. It's not that people are getting tired of this, but it has to be more organized so they can chip in a better way. For example, it's not always the money, it's also the time. There are a lot of pensioners, for example, seniors, who are very interested to help, but they can't, they can't afford to help always. So this is something that we've always also been thinking about. There is a lot of help for the children, but there is somehow the senior society is dropped off a little bit from the attention. So just to give you one example, we're now starting to organize the groups of the local seniors together with the Ukrainian seniors, especially the ones who have come alone or in couples, but don't have the family with them. So they would also find their way out of the house. So they could also integrate and also find a little bit something of, it's like the tree that doesn't have any roots anymore. So to find a little bit something that they can cling on. So this is just one example.